Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all to our today's webinar on ESR. I thank each one of you for taking time and joining our today's webinar. I welcome the speakers for our today's session, Mr. Balram Bhujri, Mr. Balram Reddy, who is a chartered accountant and managing director of Spectrum Auditing. He has overall 17 years of experience in auditing, taxation, and advisory matters. He has also experience of working in Big Four like Deloitte and KPMG. Our another speaker for today is Mr. Manish Saraf. He is a chartered accountant and a partner in Spectrum Auditing, having 20 years of experience in industry. He is also having experience of working in Big Four and is a certified internal auditor. I'm over to you, Mr. Balram.
Thank you, Pratiksha. Once again, thank you all for joining the webinar. I know this is one of the important complaints that we have as part of many of the complaints that we have recently in UAE. Economic substance regulation is applicable only for few businesses which are conducting the activities that are mentioned in the law. We will go through the list of those activities that are covered under this law. And before that, we will also get into the other details like we'll talk about the background as to why the law was brought in. And we'll also look at the economic substance regulation requirements. And then Manish will take us through the relevant activities and core income generating activities which are supposed to be conducted within the state. And then we'll also look at what is the reporting requirement, like notification and then reporting that we need to do if you are conducting any activity that is falling under the relevant activities. You can also go through quickly the penalties and for offences. And if you have any question and answers, we'll address them at the end of this session. So this is how we'll just have the session be conducted. So let's look at why we had to bring in this economic substance regulation. Not only the ESR, but if you see various other compliances like country by country reporting, and we have seen value-added tax, and then of late we have seen even anti-money laundering law. Now we are also seeing this corporate tax. So all these are primarily being driven by, of course, we have requirements within country also to bring in all these regulations or requirements on the laws, but we also had the requirement as part of the external pressures or requirements. Like OECD is one of the organizations that has been formed by various EU nations to start with, and then other developed nations joined them. This OECD is Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. So this is primarily formed to curtail the harmful tax practices. So primarily the multinational entities, they were conducting or having various tax practices by having their entities located in various jurisdictions. And with these various jurisdictions, companies, they're trying to shift the profit base from one country to another country. And in the process, they were trying to reduce or minimize the tax liabilities. They were conducting businesses in country A, whereas the profits are being shifted to country B, where the taxes or tax rates are less, or there was no tax, there were no taxes at all. So with these practices, they were trying to reduce or avoid the tax payments. So to avoid or to curtail these kind of arrangements, one country bringing in policy changes will not be helpful. So they thought that we have to bring all the countries together and form an organization and then have common practices or common laws which will help in curtailing these kind of tax practices. So with that sole objective, this OECD is being formed, and UAE is also one of the member firm of this OECD, because of which we had to bring in all these regulations. So that is one of the primary conditions or requirements why we have to bring in this economic substance regulation. We also had European Union Code of Conduct Group, which again looks at the same or similar arrangements or to curtail the harmful tax practices. So there are the two main requirements why we had to bring in this ESR into UAE. So to comply with that, so the UAE has passed a ministerial regulation or resolution in 2019. Later, this was being replaced by the another cabinet resolution number 15/7 of 2022. So as of now, this resolution of 57 passed in 2022 is prevalent, under which we are expected to comply with this economic substance regulation rules. So this is the primary background as to why we had to bring in. Of course, the main objective of the economic substance regulation is to make sure that the businesses here are having this economic substance in UAE. They conduct the activities within UAE, and because of that business, there is an economic effect in UAE. Means the employees are being employed here, you are incurring some expenses here, and you own the assets in UAE to conduct the business. So this kind of economic effect is also been in UAE. So that is what is the main objective of the ESR law. So as I mentioned, as part of this OECD, before forming this OECD, the organization has conducted various studies and they came up with various action points. So the action points are generally being called as BEPS action points. BEPS is base erosion of profit and profit shifting. So this is what it refers to. As I mentioned, the larger entities or multinational entities, they are trying to shift the profit base from one country to another, and thereby they are trying to reduce or avoid the taxes. So they came up with these 15 action points or 15 action plan, they say. So out of which UAE is being or is UAE agreed to comply with this action point 5 and 6 plus action point 13 and 14. So these are the special action points that they've agreed to, under which the country had to brought in the various laws that we have discussed so far. So as I mentioned, so the purpose of ESR is to prove that economic presence and adequate substance is there in UAE. And in order to make sure that we have the economic presence in UAE and adequate substances in UAE, so then we had to conduct economic substance test, which means we need to comply with various requirements under the law to make sure and to demonstrate that we have this economic substance here and presence and substance here. So the test is need to be conducted. When we submit the report, the authorities will look at the report and make sure or at least review from the point of view of the substance, whether we have economic substance here or not, whether the entities are passing that economic substance test or not. If any entity is not passing that test, then they'll be considered as fail in that particular test, and then there'll be penalties applied, and subsequently the details or the information related to the companies will be shared with other entities, other jurisdictions, other countries wherever the companies have the business presence, so that the other countries will take the necessary actions to bring in these profits into their taxable incomes of the respective companies in the countries, and they'll be subject to tax in those countries. So that is what is the consequence of not meeting this economic substance test. So as part of this ESR law, they have included 9 relevant activities. So any company which is conducting one of these or more one or more activities out of these 9 relevant activities, so they are expected to comply with this ESR law. When we look at these relevant activities, it's not just the form, means whether we have these activities mentioned in the law in our trade license or not. In substance, if you are conducting those activities, irrespective whether these activities part of your trade license or not, you are expected to comply with this law. So, for example, if you are conducting a distribution activity, which we will see what is the distribution activity in the following slides, your company is conducting distribution activities, but distribution activity is not part of your trade license. So just because it is not mentioned in the trade license, it doesn't mean that you are not expected to comply with this law. By the fact that you are conducting this distribution activity, since it is one of these 9 relevant activities mentioned, you are expected to comply with this economic substance regulation law and submit the notification and then report accordingly. So, but the other thing is that since this activity is not mentioned in the law, so legally you may have issues. Generally, any company that is conducting business, so they're expected to do only those activities, only that business, which is mentioned as activity on your license. So if you're doing any other business which is not part of the license, then there could be a penalty on that. Legally, you're not compliant with the requirements of the local laws. So you also need to make sure that you are actually bringing that activity into your trade license and then comply with it. So that's what is the other thing that you need to take care of. Each entity will have to be assessed separately. If you have a group of entities, and then you have to look at each entity individually and look at whether the ESR is applicable to them or not, and then the compliances are required to be met or not. So these are the activities that they have included in the law. On the left side, you can see banking business, insurance businesses, investment fund management businesses, and shipping businesses. The first three are the activities which are highly regulated activities, to say so. They already have a lot of other requirements to be met with. In addition to those requirements, they also need to meet this ESR requirements. And next, shipping business, lease finance business, distribution service center businesses, headquarter businesses, intellectual property businesses, and holding company businesses. These are the other activities that are not so highly regulated activities, but we still need to make sure that we are complying with this ESR requirements as well. Out of all these activities that are listed out, Manish is going to take us through the meaning and the definition of these activities. And he is also going to take us through the core income generating activities. So yeah, if you are conducting these relevant activities, what are the activities that are expected to conduct in UAE to make sure that you are compliant with this law? So he'll take us through in detail. But the distribution and service center business is the primary, the business that is applicable for most of the businesses in UAE. So that requires a little more attention. So anyways, we'll look at that in detail when we get to that slide. So as I mentioned, with the companies which are conducting the activities that are listed in the previous slide will be expected to comply with the ESR law. But however, they have given some exemption. The items, the entities that are listed down here are exempted from complying with this ESR law. So in which case you are exempt from submitting the notification, as well as exempted from filing the ESR report also. The entities which are conducting these investment fund activities, so those businesses are exempted from ESR law. And any entity that is a tax resident in a jurisdiction other than UAE, so the company which becomes a taxable person in other countries, so that company also becomes an exempted company or business in UAE. In addition to that, an entity which is a wholly owned entity by UAE resident, and that UAE resident company, that company is not a part of any multinational entities group, and all of the entities activities are only carried out within UAE. So this entity is wholly owned by UAE resident, and this is not part of any M&E group, and the activities of that particular entity is only conducted within UAE. If all these conditions are being met, then that company is also exempted from the ESR law, and then compliances are not required to be met by that particular company. So this is what is exempted from ESR law. Now let's see what is the requirement. I touched base on these requirements in my previous discussion also. But any license that is conducting a business here necessary to conduct the core income generating activities in the state. So we'll see what are the SIGAs, core income generating activities that are mentioned in the law, and those SIGAs are required to be conducted within the state. When I say state here, it is UAE as a whole. And those relevant activities are directed and managed in the state, means the management of the company, maybe in the form of directors or managers, should be present in UAE. at least at the time of taking those strategic decisions and important decisions, they should be here physically present in UAE, and those decisions should be conducted or taken within UAE. That is one of the mandatory requirement of the ESR law. In addition to that, the company should make sure that they have adequate full-time employees or employees which are physically present here in UAE, and the business is being conducted through those employees. So when we say the adequate number of qualified full-time employees here, the adequate is the important thing to look at. So this should always be connected or linked to the size of the business. So if you have a business which is generating 10 million turnover, 10 million turnover, so to conduct that particular business, how many number of employees are required to be here? So that is what we need to look at. So it is purely connected or related to your type of business or nature of business. Some businesses may require 1 or 2 people to conduct that 10 million business. Some of them may require 15 people or 15 employees to conduct that business. So we need to look at the nature of the business, the type of the business, and accordingly decide what is the adequate number that is required. In addition to that, we need to look at are we incurring adequate amount of operating expenses in UAE or not? It is again connected to your size of the business, nature of the business. So to this size of the business and nature of the business, are you incurring enough amount of operating expenses in UAE or not? So that is what is also expected to be compliant. And then you also need to have adequate physical asset being present in UAE. So again, it is connected to your business and nature of the business and size of the business. So these are the mandatory requirements that we need to comply with under ESR law. And in addition to those, as I mentioned, the SIGAs, you can outsource, either you conduct on your own, or you can also outsource these core income generating activities within UAE. So those outsourced activities should be monitored. So the entity should always be monitoring and supervising those activities which are outsourced. And you need to make sure that those outsourced entity also has enough number of employees here, enough amount of operating expenses being spent here, and then physical assets also being present here for that outsourced entity also. And all these figures should be mandatorily be conducted here in UAE, even by that outsourced entity also. Let's say that company A is present in UAE, and this company A is outsourcing some part of its core income generating activities to company B. So now this company B also should conduct those core income generating activities within UAE. Company B should also make sure that they have enough number of employees, enough amount of operating expenses spending here, and they should have enough amount of physical asset being here. So this is what is expected to be here. And at the same time, if this company B is taking outsourced activities from other entities also, maybe company C is also outsourcing some of the core income generating activities to this company B. Now this company B should make sure that they have enough employees to be able to take care of the activities outsourced by company A and also the activities outsourced by company C. So there should not be any duplication. They should make sure that enough amount of employees are there to be able to conduct all these outsourced activities within UAE. The other requirement of the activities being managed and directed in the state means the board of directors should meet in UAE to take any strategic decisions, as I mentioned earlier. We need to make sure that we have enough amount of quorum to conduct the board of directors meeting physically being present here. So when we say physically being present here, it's not just documenting. We also need to make sure that they are here physically. If at all, if they are someone who are traveling, we need to make sure that whether the travel tickets are being here, if they have to have the visas, if they have visas taken care, to demonstrate and to support the physical presence here for those directors also is important. We need to maintain the minutes of the meetings that have been conducted. And those minutes should be signed, and we need to keep physical minutes being present in being maintained in the registered office or registered address of the office here within UAE. So these are the other things that we need to look at. In addition to that, the directors who are on the license, they should have the knowledge and expertise to be able to discharge those duties related to the business and to conduct the business in UAE. So those are the various requirements that are required to be taken care of to be able to comply with the economic substance regulations requirement. Now, as I mentioned, Manish will take us through with respect to relevant activities and then SIGAs for each of those relevant activities that we discussed in the previous slides. So Manish, over to you.
Thank you, Balram, for taking us with the background why the ESR has been introduced and what is economic substance requirement in UAE. So now we look at what are the relevant activities and what are the SIGAs to that, the core income generating activities which has to be carried out in UAE. So as Balram mentioned about 9 activities which are there, which are covered under the ESR. So the first primarily which I've taken is distribution and service center, as this is the main activity which I think most of the organization would be coming across. And what is defined? What are those distribution and service center? It is basically purchasing from a foreign connected persons any component, material, or goods, or goods which are ready for sale and selling it in the UAE. So that means foreign connected person, that means a person who's buying it from his company, other company which is based in India. Like company A has an investment in company B in UAE, is buying it from company A. The supplier is the same. The company has same ownership investment in both in India company and in UAE company. And those materials could be like electronic items or any food supply item being supplied from India and being sold in UAE or distributed in UAE. So that is the business which is covered under the distribution and service center. So here there could be scenario that an individual has an investment in India company A, and as an individual he's also is a investor in company B in UAE. So since it is the individual person but not the company investment from India to UAE, then that foreign connected person is not there. But if it is a company investment by India to UAE company, then there is a foreign connected person. Then if any kind of supply is happening from India to UAE, then that is covered under this. And similarly in services, the services is like, the services being provided from UAE to its foreign connected person. So company A has a presence who's based in UAE and has a presence in Oman or any other country, and they're providing services that could be like, your IT support services or accounting services based in UAE being provided to other countries. So those are the foreign connected services or services provided to sister companies and across outside UAE. So that is basically covered under that. And what are those core income generating activities? It could be like transportation, storing of components, parts, materials. So any kind of material which is coming in from India or any part of the region to UAE, clearing of those goods from the shipping port, warehousing it, and distributing in UAE. So that is the core income generating activities. And that distribution of that activity is a core and it should be performed in UAE. Then managing those inventories, storing that, maintaining the inventory level is a part of it. Taking an order, that means you are getting an order from the customers, getting those supply being arranged for those customers in UAE is part of that core income generating activity. And providing any kind of consultation or administrative services. So consultation means any kind of ancillary support services for carrying out the distribution services in UAE is a part of it. And administration could be like clearing of the goods from the shipping port. That is kind of administrative services being provided. So that are all these activities should be carried out in UAE to maintain the substance, which Balram was mentioning about it. So while I'm going through this, please make a note of queries, whatever you have, you can put down in chat box and we will discuss through those questions at the end of the session. Then the next activity is the headquarter services. Now, what does the headquarter services mean? The company A, which is based in UAE, is providing the services of senior management, having a control on the material risk and reward, taking decision making, and substantive advice is being provided to control that. So company A, which is based in UAE, is providing, and the senior management is sitting out of UAE. And then they have a subsidiary in Oman, or it could be anywhere in Bahrain. and the decision making for those companies outside UAE is done from UAE. So that the control is taken control by the UAE. The headquarter is being, so the management decision making could be like acquiring any kind of a new customer, the larger customer. Strategic decision making is happening from UAE, and then maybe buying or selling of any business unit outside UAE. The decision making is done from UAE. So those are the headquarter services. So that these are like taking relevant management decision, incurring operating expenditure on behalf of the group entities. They could be like, they have entities in Oman or in Bahrain or in Saudi. So all the decision making is happening from UAE for that key operating expenditures, like they're going to acquire for new IT software. So that decision making to implement that IT software is done from UAE. So that is a key expenditure being incurred. And coordinating group activities. So any kind of supplies or services which is common across to be provided to the group, and the decision making is happening from headquarter from UAE. There's a common agreement being for procuring a particular item, and that is being done from the UAE. So that is headquarter services being rendered. So this kind of activities would be covered under the headquarter services. Now, another critical activity is with respect to the intellectual property. Now, first understand what are those intellectual property assets. It could be in the form of copyright, patent, trademark, brand, or technical know-how. So the companies, and it could be also in the form of software which the company creates, develop the software, and basically have a copyright on that particular software, and the services are being rendered through that. And the income, the main important is having an income being generated from that. So company which is holding this kind of IP assets and using it to earn the income. So that is important. The income has to be earned. If the company is having the software, bought a software and using it for its own business, like an accounting software or any operational software, they bought it and they are using it for their own business, but then that is not a copyright, because that is not their own asset, that is being taken over from others and used in the business. But then that asset is used to serve others, like if they are using the software, if a company has developed like tally accounting software which is there, or a Zoho books software is there. So those are the software which is developed by a particular company, and those Zoho is basically subscribing that to all across. So that is an IP asset of the Zoho. But someone who is basically trading on that, who's becoming an agent and using and helping others to install that Zoho books or Tally books or others in the software. So they are not the owner. The one who is the owner, having an ownership on that IP asset and serving through that IP asset, earning income, is called as intellectual property. Now, there's another definition of high risk IP asset. What is it, high risk IP asset? When it becomes a high risk, if that asset is acquired from its connected person. So a company which is based in Singapore has developed a software, and it has other company, it's a subsidiary company in UAE. So the subsidiary company UAE has bought that as the software from a Singapore company, and then earning income from that. So that is basically becomes an IP asset which is high risk. Now we look at what are those core income generating activities under this. So any kind of research and development being carried out. So basically a company would have developed software and its further expenditure is being incurred on doing enhancement of that particular product. So any kind of expenditure being incurred on enhancing the particular products or research being carried out, that is a core income generating activity. And that activity has to be carried out in UAE. The development of that particular product has to be done in UAE. And even marketing of intangibles or similar IP asset like branding, marketing, distribution. So now when we say marketing of intangibles, it could happen that there is an IP software which is based in developed and created in India, and there is the company B has been formed by the company A of India to market that particular software. So that marketing of that software in UAE is basically a core income generating activities. And with respect to the IP asset, what are those core income generating activities are taking a strategic decision and managing those principal risk. So that means that asset which is being bought from India, from its connected person, from its subsidiary company from India, and it's being the decision with respect to whom to sell, who to whom this particular rights of those assets can be given in UAE, or those which can be sold as a copyright or being serviced as a copyright to different customers in UAE, which customer to deal with, which customer not to deal with. Certain strategy decisions which are taken by has to be taken in UAE from its connected person, the asset which is bought. And any kind of ancillary trading activities, whole purpose is generating income out of that IP asset. So trading ancillary activities could be having a contract agreement and then providing a support services to that particular software services which has been sold to the particular company in UAE. So any kind of ancillary support services being provided will be also, so it has to be carried out in UAE to form a core income generating activity. Now, another critical is with respect to the holding companies. Now, holding companies are the one which have a setup and generally do an investment in other companies, hold the fund in other companies, and make earning out of capital gain or dividend being distributed by the other company in UAE. So, any company which is having a presence in UAE is just an investment in different companies and earning an interest or earning a dividend from that. That is the only. So if the company is doing holding company business, like is investing in other companies and also has its own business, then that will not be forming this. So that will not be coming under the category of holding company. To be holding company, he's only into investment business. It's not into any other business. Another category is banking. So banking is, as Balram had mentioned, that it is a highly regulated activity. So this is already governed with the particular specific regulations. And what are so that is being well defined into those regulations, what is banking. And what are the core income generating activities for the banking is raising the funds, managing the risk, including the credit, currency, interest risk. So basically, any company who's basically into public funding, arranging the funds and the public for others, that is a banking, and being carried out in UAE, taking hedging positions, that is investing those funds into the market, earning out of that hedging positions, providing loans, credit, financial services. So these are the common services which a bank would provide. And then managing capital, preparing reports to the investors and the government authority. So the government, like investment banking activities, what does the investor banker does, that they provide, they assess the particular fund and also make a report for that. And those reports are being provided to the external authorities as a when required. So this activity of providing a report is also core income generating activities which has to be carried out in UAE. So these four activities relating to the fundraising, providing a hedging, loans, credit, and then preparing these reports performed by a banker in UAE is covered under this. Now, looking at insurance business. Insurance is also a highly regulated activity. Then for the insurance which is being done, like, you have Oman Insurance or Intel Insurance, different insurance companies, they are there. So those are covered under this ESR activity. And like, predicting and calculating risk, insuring or reinsuring against the risk, providing insurance business services to clients. So everything which relate to the insurance, regarding to your health insurance, medical, life insurance, other medical insurances, companies which are there, those are covered under this. Now, does the agent of the insurance companies, are they covered under this? No, it is only the one who's the primary holder of that insurance company is the one who's covered under the ESR. So they need to do the reporting. Another activity is regarding the investment fund management business. So this is also one of the similar to your financial related activities which are regulated. And then what does it mean? What does the investment fund means? Like, these are the one which creates different kind of portfolios, market those portfolios, and collect the fund from that whoever is the investor to that particular portfolio, and use that fund for making a decision on investing in the other markets. So they are the one who are holding those investments on behalf of the customers and further investing those funds in the other market to earn interest, and then whatever gain is being arised, they would divide it among the customers. That fund gain which is arised is being distributed to the customers. So any kind of, definitely that would involve a risk taking activity, because they are going to further invest those funds outside UAE or anywhere. So that activity of further investment, collecting the funds from the customers is a fund management activity which has to be carried out in the UAE. Uh, Again, then now taking decision with respect to the currency or interest fluctuations and hedging positions. So because these are fund which are market driven, based on the market situation, the fund value will change. So when to invest, when to hold that fund, those decision making with respect to that should be taken in the UAE to form a core income generating activity. And again, similar to what the banking is, that they also have to prepare the reports. If they prepare a report to submit it to the government authorities or any other external authorities or regulations, so those preparing of a report has to be carried out in UAE. So that also forms part of the core income generating activities. Another regulated activities with respect to the lease finance. So the lease finance could be with respect to your office leases or any asset lease against which the financing is being done. So any terms being agreed, the terms, the funding arrangement has to be done within the UAE. Then the contract terms has to be here. So acquiring and identifying and acquiring asset to be leased. So basically, if the company generally go into for asset leases, where they have the companies into transportation business, they would like to have those transport vehicles on lease basis, for which the lease financing company would arrange those vehicles, identify those vehicles, and lease it to the particular customer. So those activities which are carried out by those businesses, lease finance business, will be forming part of the core income generating activities. And then the terms and conditions for which those lease period will be there, that is being controlled by the business, the lease financing business. Monitoring and revising any agreement terms, the interest terms, those any further extending those contractual terms, the decision making with respect to that is done by the lease finance business. And any kind of risk with respect to that, because those leases has an interest component, the capital component to it. So there would be a risk with respect to the market rate fluctuation. So what rate of interest should be funded, that lease should be given. That decision making is done by the finance business, controlling that the risk with respect to the interest rate which has to be there. So that is part of the core income generating activities. And another critical activity is with respect to the shipping. Now, business of operating ship anywhere in the world other than within the territorial waters of the state. That means if it has to be international shipping line. If it is a domestic within, say, suppose from Abu Dhabi to Dubai or Sharjah within the UAE territory, then that is not covered. But if that shipping is for the international transportation from UAE to Oman or anywhere in the world, so that is covered under as an ESR reporting. So it has to be shipment transportation by sea or chartering of a ship. So particular person who doesn't own the ship but just charters that ship is that. Then also the one who does the sale of travel ticket. So the person who's dealing in that, arranging the ticket, who's an agent and selling the ticket for a particular shipment. So those is also being covered under that. And the use and maintenance of rental of containers used for transport. So because if you see, on the shipment side, those containers are there. The one who rent those containers, those who are doing a maintenance activity in that container. So supplying those containers on rental basis is also covered as a part of a shipping line business. And also management of a crew of a ship. That means who are providing those crews for the ship. That part of the function is also being covered under the definition of ship. Even supplying those crews are covered under shipping management business. Now, what are those core income generating activities which has to be carried out in UAE? Is management of those crews, hiring, paying, overseeing crews. Generally, the shipping line, what does it have? They have other company who provide them the regular crew for the shipping. And because they are moving around all across and they want someone to be based in UAE who should provide and manage those crews. So those day-to-day administrative activities for the crews are being handled by someone. So those who are handling those is covered under the shipping line business. And then, of course, the maintaining of those ships. So overhauling and maintaining of the ships has to be carried out in UAE. Tracking of shipping, those are one who does the tracking of that, how the movement of which ship is there. The day-to-day reporting of the ship movement has to be done, carried out in UAE, and determining what goods to order, when to deliver, organizing. So all this management with respect to the transportation of sea transportation handled by the company in UAE, it has to be part of it will be part of a core income generating activities. So the core income generating activities are managing of the crew, the maintenance of the ship, the tracking of the shipment, the movement of the shipment, and what goods has to be moved, taking an order from the customer and arranging those shipping delivery. That is also being covered under that. Now, what we look at those 9 activities. Now, what are those substance tests which Balram already took over, mentioned in the initial slides? Now, what are the notification and reporting requirement? What is an obligation for the business for this? So there is a National Assessing Authority as per the Article 7 of the ESR. The National Assessing Authority will determine whether the business has met those who are carrying those 9 relevant activities have met the economic substance in terms of having an educate business assets in the territory of UAE, maintaining people around this. So there is a substance proof. So that will be assessed. And for assessing that, what does authority ask for? So first, the requirement is submitting a notification within 6 months from the end of the financial period. So suppose a company whose first financial period ends on 31st December 2022, so he should have filed this notification within 6 months, that is by June and 23. Okay, and that filing of notification is through the Ministry of Finance through the ESR portal. And only those who are falling under those relevant activities, those 9 relevant activities, they need to file this. Now, and Balram already mentioned about that. What are those exempted categories which doesn't have to file? Those fall under the ESR notification. So, beside that, those who are within those 9 relevant activity need to submit a legal information about it, about the company, to the regulatory authority. The reportable period, so they are reporting for the period of 31st December 2022. So from 1st January to 31st December 2022, or whatever they could have started between. So they could have started the business in month of May. So 1st May 2022 to 31st December 2022. That has to be reported in the notification. And type of relevant activity. So it could be distribution and service center business, it could be headquarter business, the holding business. So those under what activity they fall, that need to be assessed. That assessment is very important to see under what business activity, relevant activity your company is falling into. That need to be assessed. And then the income generated from the carrying out of those relevant activity. I mean, maybe it is not the amount which to be declared at the time of notification, but the only that whether they are generating any relevant income. Maybe like if you talk about, they have a distribution and service center business. Maybe in this they do that. Though the company is into distribution service center business and the business was started, suppose in the month of October 2022, and by the end of 31st December 2022, they would have not earned any income from that. Even they have not earned any income from that, but they are still supposed to notify to the authorities within 6 months, that they fall under the relevant activity of distribution and service center business, but there is no nil income for the period 31st December 2022. Now, in the entity which conducts this relevant activity and earns an income, so it's important that you have given a declaration notification by June 2023. Now, by the end of this year, 12 months from the end of the financial period, that is 31st December 2022, 12 months thereafter is 31st December 2023. So this 31st December 2023, you need to submit a annual report of the activity which is being carried out. And that has to be again through the Ministry of Finance, the ESR portal. The reporting has to be done within next 12 months. And in this only being required when you are earning an income out of it. If you're not earning income, the reporting may not be required. But the one who has earned the income from that need to submit a report from that. So what is that report requirement is that license earn income from relevant activity to the relevant financial period and are not exempt from the regulations submitted to the regulatory authority through the Ministry of Finance ESR portal, and within 12 months, that is 31st December 2023, if their financial period ends on 31st December 2022. Now look at what are those what are the content which is generally covered in this annual reporting. We talk about the type of relevant activity conducted. So Out of those 9 relevant activity which we mentioned about, it could be falling under distribution and share services, and then it could be falling under your headquarter services, or it could be a holding company. So any whatever the relevant activity is being conducted, they need to be mentioned about it, and the type of relevant income being earned. So we have mentioned about core income generating activities. So out of that core income generating activities, under what subcategory of income being earned? So suppose for distribution and distribution service center business, so maybe like the company who's buying the electronic items from its company parent company A in India, supplied to company B company here in UAE. So they're saying they will they'll mention that they have the distribution business of electronic item from India to UAE, and whatever the amount has been earned, that has to be declared in that. And the type of operating expenses and asset in that relevant activity. Now, why this is required to mention about it, that type of relevant operating expenses and asset? Because to prove the substance, this is required, that what is the expenditure being incurred and what of asset the company has in UAE. It is not just for the sake of billing purpose, the company doesn't have an existing substance over here. So to prove whether you have a substance or not, you need to mention about the kind of expenditure being incurred for your employees, for buying those any kind of utilities in the company, and the asset in terms of the office rent incurred there, and what other office items there. So those assets has to be declared to prove substance. And then the location and the place of the business, definitely that you have a presence in UAE. So you need to mention that where is the registered office as per a trade license, and the number of full-time professionals with their qualifications, where it need to be justified. If someone is doing, suppose the marketing of the softwares, so and from that is being bought from the parent company in India and being marketed here. So for that, do we have a sufficient number of people who are qualified on the IT side, who's going to market, who's going to provide a demo to the customer, sell that activity from UAE? So are those people present here? So those number of full-time professional, they need to mention about the details in that annual report. And then the core income generating activities, what are those core income generating activity, as we mentioned about, is it with respect to, like, when we talk about the distribution business. So the distribution business will mention about taking an order, managing the inventory. So those, what are those core income generating activities that need to be mentioned in that report. And then of course the financial statement need to be provided, because that will give the amount, that what has been the activities being carried out in terms of the expenditure being incurred, the asset be there, what is the revenue items. So that financial statement is required to be supported along with the annual report. And then the declaration to satisfy, to confirm whether they met the economic substance. So as Balram was highlighting regarding the requirement of substance test in terms of the decision making being done, the board meetings happening, the minutes is there. So those conditions has to be there, and the kind of asset the company has, the expenditure being incurred. If those criteria are being met, then they need to give a declaration, yes, they made the substance test. Because based on the annual report, the authority will assess whether you are meeting it not, those substance requirement. If you don't meet, then there is a penalty. If you give a false information on those, there are penal consequences to that. So we will look at those penal consequences. So these are the activities, these are the information which has to be provided as part of the annual report. Now, looking at what are those penalties, if in case you have an offense to that, like failure to submit the ESR notification. So the ESR notification has to be submitted by those who are carrying out this 9 relevant activity, and this has to be submitted within 6 months from the end of the financial period. That is, someone who had a financial period ending 31st December 2022 should have filed by June 23. Similarly, who's going to now for this 31st December 23, it has to be filed by June 24. So you have to file this notification, otherwise there's a penalty of 20,000. And similarly, submitting this annual report, which is 12 months from the end of the financial period. So now for 31st December 22, the annual period is ending on 31st December 23. So you need to file the annual report, otherwise you'll end up paying fine of for 50,000. Now, those are the next is the economic substance test. So if you are not able to prove that economic substance, that you have a presence carrying out justified with your water business activities under which you are carrying out in UAE, whether you meet in terms of you're having an asset, people around it to carry out that activity or not. So if you don't meet that substance test, then there would be penalty of 50,000. And if similarly in the second year also, if those substance test is not met, then you end up paying 40,000. And then of course, providing incomplete or wrong information will end up paying this penalty of 50,000. So while following the compliances, you make sure those correct details are being provided, and you first is that having a notification within 6 months time. The next is having annual report. Annual report would be required when you have that relevant activity income. That report has to be declared what is the amount of income being earned in that, and where you have to prove your substance test. So otherwise you end up paying these penalties. Now with this, we are open for the question and answer sessions, and we can talk about what are your queries you have on this topic.
Yeah, I think there is one question here. This question from Preston. So business. So from your presentation, I understand that you do not have to file for ESR if you are neither conducting nor receiving any income from activity. So despite the fact that this activity is mentioned in the license, so you're saying that okay, so you're saying that you have an activity mentioned on the license, but you're not generating income out of that. So generally in these cases, what happens is you will still have to file the notification mentioning that activity, and in that you will get an option to select whether you are generating income out of it or not. So you will say you're not generating income out of it, then you submit that notification. So once you do this, the notification related complaints will be taken care, and for these instances, generally the ESR report is not required. So you're exempted from ESR reporting, but however, the filing of notification is required that you have to do. Okay, so what the next question is that what if holding company providing the administrative services to its foreign subsidiary company, is this income also coming under a holding business activity? So ideally, it doesn't come under the holding business activity, because that's not the activity description of the holding company or holding business activity. So it may fall under headquarter businesses, or it may fall under service center business, depending upon the kind of business and responsibility that you're taking here. The assumption. So based on that, you will have to classify or identify the other activity that is also relevant, required to comply that accordingly. So these are the questions that we had. Most of the companies, they generally have this January to December as their financial year. So for those companies who are conducting these relevant activities, now we are in December, and 31st December is the deadline to submit the ESR report. So we provide the ESR report filing and documentation maintenance assistance services. So any of you require these services, you can definitely reach out to us to take care of those filing requirements. In addition to this, we also provide audit, accounting, and value-added tax services, plus corporate tax and transfer pricing services, company formation PRO services, risk management services, and internal audits. These are the various other services that we do. And we also provide anti-money laundering related services. So you can reach out to us. So these are our contact details. So you can reach out to us on the number mentioned here, or on the email that we mentioned here. We also keep publishing various blogs on various upcoming legal topics, or the compliance requirements and all those. You can refer to our website on a regular basis to know more about those things. So with this, I think we are also reaching our time.
It is what is the percentage of holding investment in a foreign entity will be treated as a foreign connected person?
So here what they mentioned is, if you are foreign connected person of a company, is supposed to be consolidated in your books of accounts. Okay, so if that condition is being met, and if that company is consolidated as part of the group, then that foreign company becomes a foreign connected person. So that's what. So generally, it is more than 50% is what we look at as a subsidiary, in addition to control also. But yeah, that's what is the condition to be looked at. If a foreign company is a part of your group to be consolidated, wherein you are also part of that particular group and being consolidated, then that becomes a foreign connected person. Hope the session was useful. So you can definitely reach out to us if you have any more questions. And thank you all for attending the session. Thank you.